The question doesn't arise, what does it mean, People see it for what it is, and they're not threatened by it. And I think that's a big advantage. And then they see themselves, and nothing is more attractive than that, of course.
I happen to make public sculpture, and I make this as much as a matter of policy as anything else.
We first met Bert was through my father. What you see there is the mock-up of the tetrahedron that went in front of the Festival Theatre. Yeah. But my father wasn't to survive to see the end of that job. He passed away as a result of a heart attack, and so I continued on with the company, the family company, and we saw the completion of that job. So we were chosen for the high finish of the work that Bert was demanding. We were only one of a handful of people who were manufacturing in stainless steel. That was back in '73. Now, today there'd be hundreds of people.
They are very difficult to make. And I always have to find people who are sympathetic towards the idea and who get caught up in it and who want to make it.
When Bert first approached me on that, he came with a maquette.
I then make small models out of paper or cardboard and stick them together with sellotape. And gradually I visualize the thing better and better until I'm quite sure in my mind how it goes. And then I make a serious cardboard model or a maquette, whatever you like, of the finished piece. And then finally I make a metal one. And eventually the whole thing is realized on a large scale.
And he acquired a couple of maybe plastic balls of so big, and he covered them in silver paper and had a stick through the centre of them with a little base, and he said, that's what I want, but I need these balls 2.4 metres diameter, one sitting on the other. So everything else was left to us.
They were wonderful. They became so involved with the problem of making it, because, it's easy to talk about it, two spheres on top of each other. But to make a sphere, well, these are made two hemispheres.
The spheres were made out of segments, much like a soccer ball. They were made in two half dishes, and they were then brought together as a total ball. We had to make a jig. The segments all were pressed, and each one had a variance. They weren't perfect. The whole art of the finishing product was after they were tacked together, they were welded, but there was a lot of panel beating, as you would expect in repairing a car panel. And that panel beating was to make it fair, usually by hand, by feeling it, and this is where it comes with experience and the craftsmanship.
And to do that is a miracle.
There's a tube that goes up from the base where they're mounted to a footing, and there's a tube about so round that holds them the two together. That tube goes right through to secure the top with the bottom. Now the top sphere will bolt onto here.
Yep.
And that's where the two spheres would come together here. There was a lifting point on the top ball which had a button which was screwed on so it would be blemish free, where there was a thread at the top, and the thread would accommodate an eye bolt that a crane could lift, and then it would be lifted off the foundations, but up through the bottom was accessible through that column, and we could unscrew it so the two halves could be separated so that we could access inside. And then the polish was in consultation. Bert would come out and we'd do a test window on the job. He'd say, can you get it a bit brighter than that? So we'd have another shot at it, bring it up brighter, until he was to sign off to say, yeah, that's how I want it, just like that.
And I said, well, look, this is good enough. And they said, no, it isn't. And they worked on it more and more and more.
They were always a labour of love, because whatever the budget was on these, we had a budget of about 12,000. I managed to extract another 6 because we're just seeing the hours were blowing out on it, but it would probably cost us double that again. So, you know, they were not profitable jobs.
Wonderful people.
Bert was a person who always wanted, you know, let's say the public to be able to touch his work. Each time we polish them, we are taking off microscopic thickness. I'm sure there'd be some people who'd kick them. You're the yeah. From there, one of the other bits of work we did was the knot, which was originally on North Terrace. Now it's been relocated to Light Square.
But is it art? I think it's a good enough question. Obviously, it's somebody who already has opinions. It's not the man in the street asking the question. It's someone who is engaged in the whole art dialogue. Joe Blow doesn't give a damn, actually. Certainly wouldn't write in text or colour, but is it art?
And then Bert engaged us in another job, which is see the cones, which went to the National Gallery in Canberra. They were 5mm thick. Now they just last indefinitely. They were plate instead of sheet metal, which the balls in the mall were like 3mm is really considered not a plate but a sheet. I have to say, the people that were involved back then, you don't see them today.
You have other people to help you in this, and they are responsible very largely. You couldn't do it without them.
I mean, those days are gone now, both from a skills point of view and the cost of trying to make these things. They just were so time consuming.
Then they see themselves, and nothing is more attractive than that, of course.
That is fantastic.
My father loved these works, these balls. He may be gone, but his balls remain.
1, 2, 3.
The first instinct is to look at themselves and to knuckle it, and then to walk around it. Ostensibly, they are two perfect spheres, and they reflect into each other. And that means that theoretically, they reflect into infinity. You know, the reflection is reflected in the reflection, in the on and on and on. Of course, because of imperfections and things, that disappears. But a sufficient number of reflections to make you speculate. And so I called the sculpture, inverted commas, on further reflection. And that seemed to me like a clever name and a funny one. And of course, it never happened. The day after we put it up, when they advertised the front page, it said, Bert's boys are in a ball. That's been ever since. I mean, they dropped the bird, but the boys in the ball, yeah, that's been it.